Hello, welcome back. This is Jeff Byers, and I'll be your instructor for this video tutorial series. And we're going to be talking about how to UV map a short sleeve shirt, and we'll be using UDEM tiles. All right, so let's go ahead and get started. So what we want to do now is go to UV and UV editor, and notice that it remembers all the cuts. Okay, you can see the cuts. Okay, this is selected. All right, so these are the things we need to have done. So I'm going to move that over like this. Okay, so we can see it. And I'm going to move this over here like this. And let's close this up a little bit. We don't need so much space here, so we can see both. And I'm going to zoom in a little bit and move it over a bit so we can kind of see how it lays it out. Here we go. Okay, so what we want to do is we want to go to Unfold, and we want to click on Unfold. And there we go. So there are all the pieces. It looks like I have more pieces than I had before, but that's okay. You know, like I said, it's never the same, and a lot of this is just experimentation and taking it in to see how the pieces lay and work, okay, in Substance Painter, how the texture looks. That's what's important. Okay. But we got familiar pieces that I see here, okay? Very familiar pieces, okay? So it's just, I'm just moving them out of the way so they're not all overlapped. That's a no-no with UDEM tiles especially, okay? All right, so just kind of figuring out where things are at, okay? And you can kind of see that I've got some pieces, and what's really cool is that it does tell you where pieces are. So I want to right click over and go to UV shell. This is how you move UV shells around. Okay. If you make a mistake, there's ways of cutting, cutting seams within the editor. Okay. So we can take a look at that, but you can see that I've got this highlighted, and it highlights here the piece that I have, and that it's laid it out, and it looks really good. Okay. We could put a seam across here if we wanted to. If there's distortion at the top of the shoulder, we could probably put a seam here, because there are seams on the top of the shoulder that go through to this part right here. So I could put a seam in here if there is distortion here. Put a seam here and hide that seam by placing it within that little part, that sewed part right here. Okay, so I'm just thinking out loud what I could do if that stretches right there, causes problems. Because I can see that might be a problem right here. That's where that piece is right here at the top, and I can find that easily by going in here and right clicking, go to edge, and double clicking on the edge here, and you can see where that edge is. Okay, so if I go up higher, you can see that edge is right here. Okay, I can do the same kind of thing, where if I only want it to go there, then I would hold the control key and just kind of deselect those edges there. I don't want anything in here. You can see how this can be kind of a pain to figure out, right? So I'm going to hold the control key and just kind of click on that until it goes away. And that takes some doing, I guess. There we go. And it unfortunately got rid of that, but you could go in here, I suppose, and just click on this one, right? Click on this one and double click on that one. That would just give you that edge there. Okay. All right. So, once you find the cut that you want to cut, you can cut in here. Let's say by going in here and just go to edge mode and just cutting. You have to get pretty close. Select this guy right here, and you could go all the way through if you wanted to this guy over here. Let's go in here and double click on that. And when you do that, that allows you to make a cut in here. Now I don't want to do this. Like, this goes all the way this way. Let me see where this is at. So I'm going to click on that guy right here and see where that is. Okay, so let's click on this, like that one, and go all the way to this part over here like that. Let's just say we want to make that cut. All right, so I've got that selected. And how do I cut it? Just go to cut and just click on cut. Okay, that cuts for you. So when I go to UV shell, now it is, I can go ahead and move that. And now it's separated. You've got a seam there. You don't have to go back to this tool here and make adjustments. You can now go into the UV editor and make that adjustment. Okay, now I don't want to do that, but when you do something like that, then what you do is you can go to unfold again, and it looks like it didn't do much. So to me, that makes me think that, well, it was pretty optimized as is. So I'm going to go Control Z back and get it back to where it was. Okay, so I've got one UV shell. All right, so that's basically it. And you know, at this point, I'm going to want to rotate this as close as I can to where it should be, and then go to Arrange and Layout, and I can go in here and click on Orient Shell. Okay, so it doesn't really do anything here. At this point, you probably should ignore this window here, and we're just working in the UV editor. Okay, so let me go ahead and do full screen on this if I can. There we go. So we're just going to work in here now, and you can see that I've got all my pieces here. I'm just going to go click on Orient Shells, and that will just kind of line those up. Okay. It really depends on how you want those aligned with texturing, but I would try to align those the best you can. Just get those oriented properly here. Now, this may have something to do with your packing. You may want to pack this differently, but I'm just going to go ahead and line these all up so they kind of look the same here by using Orient Shells. Again, the interior pieces here don't really matter, but I'm going to go ahead and get those oriented to see what it does here for orientation. Okay. All right, so now we're ready to lay out the UVs, or actually the next thing we're going to do is find out how we're going to lay this out. So you can see that's way bigger than the UV shell. So we've got to just scale that down to where it fits. And you want to do that to the largest piece you have for your closer object, the largest UV shell you have, so it'll fit in there. Okay, and then what you do is you go from there by finding the texel resolution. Okay, texel density. That's basically the resolution, the amount of resolution that you're going to be needing for that object, that UV shell, to fit within the UV 0 to 1 UV space. So we've got to go to Transform and down to texel density. Okay, what we're going to want to do is we want to check the texel density scale here. This is what we have here. I'm going to click on Get. So I'm going to click on this and then click on Get. And this is, you can see that's a way smaller than it was before because it was way outside the UV shell. So it's at 4.18. Okay, right, because that's a big piece. All right, so what I'm going to do now is I need to select everything else. So I'm just going to go ahead and select everything, and I'm going to go click on Set. Now, I don't mind if I click on this because it's already set to 4.1. Okay, notice how everything got smaller. I'll do a Control Z so you can see. So I'm going to go to Set. Okay, all right. So now what that's done, it's made every single piece, okay, at the same texel density resolution as what will the main piece, the main shirt, will show. Okay. And I'll show that. I'll talk more about that, but this is what we want to see. Now you have the chance to, the next thing I would do is put these other big pieces in, okay? Get those in there, and then you can start taking these pieces, the bigger pieces, and finding spots for them, okay? And you're just repacking the shell, okay, the way you want it to be packed, okay? And you want to do it as efficiently as possible, Okay, so you're just finding spots that you can place these, and you can arrange this any way you want to. We're not packing for games, so I'm not too worried about dead space. You know, gosh, in the game, you're packing as much stuff as you can in one texture space. Okay. With this, we're not doing game, we're doing film. Now, if you were to do game, you'd want to pack this much, much better. Okay. You'd probably want to have a program that packs it for you, so you don't have to take the time to do it. And there's lots of ways of packing, to giving yourself more space, and packing as as condensed as you can. If I wanted to pack this really condensed, I'd move all this stuff around. You'd have to rotate stuff to get it. It's like putting a puzzle together, right? So you could pack it crazy like that if you wanted to. But I'm just going to go back to where I have it. Space things out a bit. I got a little more room, especially with Udemy tiles. I don't have to get in there and if I ever want to go back in here and go into Photoshop and mess with this or add grunge to the shirt or to the texture, I can do that pretty easily without having these seams so close together. Okay, so that's basically the layout of the shirt. And so what I'm going to do now is let's go ahead and bring this, if I can, bring this down back where I had it. Okay. So that's basically the shirt, and we'll get to the buttons, and that's just one Udemy tile. Let me show one more thing. If I click on, make this a little bit bigger here. Click on this guy right here. Make sure that's on too as well. Then you can see the textile density on the shirt, and it looks really, really good. It's uniform. That's what you're looking for. And you're asking yourself, well, that looks pretty easy. Well, it is easy once I show you how to do the get and the set, right? But if I were to take this Udemy shell, let me give you an example. What if I add a lot more texture space to this, okay? All right, to that one particular piece there. Let's see where that is. Oh, that's the inside. That doesn't really help us. It's hard to see. Let's find the outside ones, like one of these guys and one of these guys here, like that. And so you can see that the textile density, you're going to have a higher resolution. Anything smaller will be a higher resolution, taking up a lot more textile space as well, but have a higher resolution. So if the idea is that you have it uniform, so the texture scaling, like say, especially if you have threads, a thread count, and you have threads that are farther apart here, but super close together here, you'll never get it consistent. You'll have a larger thread and a smaller thread look here with that fabric, right? And that won't look right. You want it to be constant. You want the texture to be constant all the way through. So that's why textile density is a huge thing, and why I stress that we use that, and then we go from there, and that way we can pack our shirt up real nice. Okay. Now, if I have a shirt that has a different texture, let's say the sleeves have a different texture than the main body, then you could separate that area, that area to a different Udemy tile for a different texture, for a different material, right? We talked about that. So, and that makes it easier for you too, because you've already got it laid out. What if I want to take the sleeves, right? Take these sleeves and add, I don't know if I don't want to do that, but take these sleeves, right? And move those over. And that can be its own material. That could be a different material. It could be a different color of material, okay? It could be the same material, but just a different color. You can do that by just moving those over. And don't worry, you think you're wasting space. Yeah, normally with gaming textures, you don't want to waste space. That would be a sacrilege, but you would not want to do that. So basically, you're kind of stuck with texturing those pieces in and masking them out in Substance Painter and packing everything in one. But we're working in film. This is going to be film. This character is going to be rendered, and if we wanted to animate it and then render it as a piece of film for film, then we have the option to do Udemy tiles, and you have option to do Udemy tiles in gaming too. That's kind of open doors as well. But right now we're just focused on the film side, and the funny thing is, film and gaming are going to collide, meaning that you're probably going to be able to do, well, you can do that now, higher resolution, UDIM tiling for UV maps, and not have to worry about packing everything into one single little square. Okay, so keep that in mind. Let's go back, get back where we were. Okay. And then we'll stop this tape where it is, and that's about it for this video, and we'll come back and get those buttons and everything else ready to go. Okay, I'll see you then.